In the waning days of the 18th century, the mighty Mughal Empire, once a shining beacon of Islamic civilization and Persian influence grandeur, began to crumble beneath the weight of its own history. The empire that had, for over 2 centuries, wielded unparalleled influence across the Indian subcontinent, was now slipping quietly into the annals of the past. Its golden era, marked by dazzling architecture, vibrant courts, and a flourishing synthesis of cultures, was giving way to chaos, decline, and disintegration. The fall of the Mughal Empire was not a sudden event, but a protracted process, a complex tapestry woven from internal strife, external invasions, economic hardships, and the relentless encroachment of European colonial powers. It was an epoch that would forever reshape the destiny of India, transforming an imperial dream into the colonial dominion of the British Raj. Today, we journey back into this pivotal chapter of history, an era of grandeur and decline that defined a civilization and ultimately paved the way for the modern nation of India. From the heights of Akbar's enlightened rule to the tumultuous final decades, the story of the Mughal Empire is a testament to human ambition, resilience, and tragedy. It is a tale that echoes through the corridors of history, a reminder of how even the greatest empires, no matter how formidable, are vulnerable to the tides of change. Let us begin by exploring the glorious foundations upon which this empire was built, and understand how a dynasty rooted in the deserts of Central Asia came to dominate the Indian subcontinent, shaping its culture, economy, and political landscape for centuries to come. The Mughal Empire's story begins in the early 16th century, when a restless warrior named Baber, a descendant of Timur and Genghis Khan, crossed the Khyber Pass into India. In 1526, at the Battle of Panipat, Baber's armies defeated the Sultan of Delhi, establishing the Mughal dynasty in India. His victory marked the dawn of a new empire, one grounded in a sophisticated synthesis of Persian cultural influences, Islamic governance, and local Indian traditions. Baber's successor, Humayun, faced setbacks, but it was under Akbar the Great, whose reign from 1556 to 1605 would become the zenith of Mughal power, that the empire truly expanded and flourished. Akbar's vision was revolutionary. He united diverse peoples, abolished oppressive taxes, and fostered a culture of tolerance and inquiry. His court in Fatehpur Sikri became a hub of artistic and intellectual activity, embodying a cosmopolitan spirit that drew from Persian, Indian, and Central Asian sources. Akbar's policies laid the groundwork for a stable, centralized authority that would endure long beyond his reign. His successors, Jahangir and Shah Jahan, continued this legacy, commissioning marvels like the Taj Mahal, a symbol of both love and imperial grandeur, and consolidating Mughal dominance over much of the subcontinent. Yet, the foundations of this vast empire were not invulnerable. Internal dissent, court intrigues, and succession disputes increasingly threatened Mughal unity. The empire's strength depended heavily on a delicate balance of power, personal loyalty, and charismatic leadership, elements that could be easily destabilized. As the 17th century drew to a close, the empire's internal cohesion began to weaken, setting the stage for the troubles that would follow. At the heart of Mughal dominion was the figure of Aurangzeb Alamgir, whose reign from 1658 to 1707 marked the empire's greatest territorial extent. Aurangzeb's policies were characterized by religious orthodoxy and expansionism. He sought to reinforce Islamic laws, impose a stricter moral code, and extend Mughal authority into the Deccan and beyond. Under his rule, the empire stretched from the Himalayas in the north to the tip of the Indian peninsula. Yet, this expansion came at a cost. The zenith of Mughal power under Aurangzeb was also its undoing. His relentless military campaigns drained the treasury and exhausted the empire's resources. The vast territories he conquered required constant garrisoning and administration, an impossible task given the empire's increasing size and complexity. Meanwhile, his policies alienated many of his subjects, especially non-Muslims, fostering resentment and rebellion. The empire, once united by Akbar's inclusive ethos, now teetered on the brink of fragmentation. As the 18th century unfolded, cracks in Mughal authority widened. Internal disputes over succession, court intrigues, and regional loyalties created a fractured political landscape. The Mughal court was rife with factions, power struggles, and rivalries, undermining the stability needed to govern effectively. Simultaneously, external threats began to loom larger: invaders from Central Asia, Persian ambitions, and the rising power of regional kingdoms all chipped away at Mughal dominance. The empire's economic backbone was also weakening. The once flourishing trade routes, vibrant markets, and artisanal crafts faced increasing disruption. The empire's administration, heavily reliant on a complex bureaucracy, struggled to adapt to changing circumstances. Corruption, inefficiency, and the burden of maintaining such a vast territory drained the imperial treasury, leading to fiscal crises that further destabilized Mughal authority. During this tumultuous period, European powers, most notably the Portuguese, Dutch, French, and British, began to encroach upon Mughal interests. Initially, they arrived seeking trade and influence, establishing fortified trading posts along India's coast. Over time, their presence grew more assertive. The British East India Company, in particular, saw opportunity in Mughal decline. Through treaties, military intervention, and diplomatic maneuvering, they gradually expanded their foothold. The European intrusion was not merely economic, it was strategic. The British, with their superior naval power and diplomatic cunning, began to exploit regional rivalries and rebellions, turning local conflicts into opportunities for expansion. The Battle of Plassey in 1757, where Robert Clive defeated Siraj-ud-Dowlah, marked a decisive turning point, an event that would lead to British dominance over much of India. The Mughal emperor, once the supreme ruler of the subcontinent, found his authority increasingly diminished, reduced to a shadow of his former self, a figurehead under colonial influence. Meanwhile, the Maratha Confederacy and the Sikh missiles emerged as powerful regional forces. The Marathas, under leaders like Peshwa Bajira I, challenged Mughal authority in western India, carving out their own empire through relentless military campaigns. Similarly, the Sikhs, centered around the Golden Temple in Amritsar, established a formidable confederacy that resisted Mughal oppression and grew into a significant force in northern India. These rising powers further fragmented the already weakened Mughal realm, eroding its territorial integrity and political cohesion. By the late 18th century, the Mughal emperor's authority was largely symbolic, while real power lay with regional warlords, European colonial administrators, and rising indigenous dynasties. The empire was increasingly a patchwork of semi-autonomous states, each vying for dominance amid the chaos. The once imposing Mughal court had become a distant memory, its grandeur overshadowed by internal collapse and external encroachment. The final decades of the 18th century witnessed a series of pivotal events that sealed the empire's fate. The death of Bahadur Shah I in 1712, and subsequent weak successors, left the throne vulnerable. The rising influence of the British, coupled with rebellions like the Maratha invasions and the rise of the Sikh Empire, shattered Mughal unity. The Battle of Buxar in 1764 further cemented British dominance, while the sacking of Delhi in 1739 by Nadir Shah of Persia displayed the empire's vulnerability to foreign invasions. By the dawn of the 19th century, the Mughal emperor was a mere puppet, a figure confined within the walls of Delhi, with no real control over the vast territories that once obeyed him. The 1857 uprising, often seen as the final act, was a desperate attempt to revive Mughal authority, but it was ultimately suppressed. The British Crown formally abolished the Mughal dynasty in 1858, after the rebellion, marking the end of an era. Yet, the legacy of the Mughal Empire endures. Its art, architecture, and cultural achievements, epitomized by the Taj Mahal, Fatehpur Sikri, and countless other monuments, remain symbols of India's rich and diverse heritage. The administrative innovations, the blending of cultures, and the religious tolerance introduced by Akbar planted seeds that would influence Indian society long after the empire's fall. The fall of the Mughal Empire was not merely the loss of a dynasty, it was the end of an epoch that had shaped the spiritual, cultural, and political fabric of the Indian subcontinent. It reminds us how empires, no matter how mighty, are vulnerable to internal divisions and external pressures, a truth as relevant today as it was centuries ago. From its glorious inception to its tragic decline, the Mughal story is a testament to the impermanence of power and the enduring resilience of human civilization.